Bottomless riches. Leading life and business with God's supply. When Paul sat in a Roman prison, writing to the church at Philippi, he penned words that have echoed across centuries. "And my God will meet all your needs according to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus." Philippians 4:19. This wasn't theory. It wasn't motivational fluff. It was conviction born out of chains, scarcity, and the uncomfortable uncertainty of tomorrow. That's where the power of this verse strikes us. Not in a world of comfort, but in the grit of difficulty. Paul's contentment wasn't tied to what he had, but to who had him. That shift changes everything. How we live, how we lead, and how we work. The secret to contentment in an unsatisfied world. If we're honest, much of modern life is fueled by restlessness. We scroll because we don't feel full. We chase deals, titles, and achievements because the finish line always seems just out of reach. Businesses expand only to hunger for more expansion. Families consume yet rarely feel satisfied. Paul cuts through that noise with one radical insight. Contentment is not circumstantial, it's relational. He had found the secret to being content in every season, Philippians 4:12. That secret wasn't minimalism, positive thinking, or denial. It was confidence that God himself is the source, the supply, and the sustainer. Here's the rub. When you build your life or business on what you can hold, you'll always be haunted by the fear of losing it. When you build on the endless supply of God, you step into a freedom that outlasts scarcity. God's economy versus our scarcity mindset. Think about this. Paul writes of God supplying according to his riches. Notice he doesn't say out of if a billionaire hands you a $100 bill, that's giving out of his wealth. But if he says, "I will meet your needs according to my fortune," you have access to something far greater. That's the difference between how we often operate and how God operates. We measure our generosity, our risks, and even our dreams by the limits of what we see in the account. God measures by his glory, bottomless, boundless, inexhaustible. In business terms, it's the difference between bootstrapping with fear and leading with a growth mindset anchored in divine abundance. Scarcity whispers, "There's not enough." God's economy declares, "There's more than you can imagine." The microscope view. Key words that change the game. Paul's word choice in this verse matters. The Greek term plerou for supply means to fill completely, to bring to full measure. God doesn't top off your life like a gas station attendant distractedly filling your tank. He fills you to the brim with what is needed: strength for today, wisdom for decisions, endurance for trials. And needs here isn't limited to groceries or payroll. It speaks to the total human experience, physical, emotional, spiritual, and relational. You need clarity in a tough negotiation? God can supply that. Do you need courage to confront a toxic team dynamic? He provides that too. This isn't prosperity gospel, it's provision gospel. The professional application, leading out of fullness. In leadership, one of the most dangerous postures is leading on empty. You push through exhaustion, manage from insecurity, and lead with clenched fists. That's when scarcity thinking takes over, hoarding resources, fearing competitors, and distrusting employees. But when you root yourself in God's bottomless riches, you shift from survival mode to servant leadership. Instead of asking, "What if I run out?" you start asking, "What can I give away?" That's the space where creativity thrives, trust builds, and businesses become more than profit machines. They become platforms for purpose. And let's be clear, generosity is not just about money. It's time, attention, patience, mentoring, and vision. Scarcity says, I don't have enough to share. God's provision says, I can't afford not to. The relational application. Overflow becomes testimony. Paul's confidence in God's supply didn't just sustain him, it spilled into others. He reassured the Philippians that the same God who cared for him would care for them. That's the beauty of overflow. It multiplies. When you live out of God's abundance, your joy becomes contagious in your home. Your peace steadies the storm in your workplace. Your faith inspires your team to take risks they wouldn't otherwise take. People notice. They lean in. They want to know why you're not unraveling when the market dips, why you still radiate hope after loss, and why you keep showing up with generosity even when times are lean. That's testimony. The spiritual connection. Peace, not just provision. Here's a deep truth. Sometimes the provision isn't the thing you think you need. It's the peace to endure without it. Sometimes it's not more resources, but more resilience. Sometimes it's not an easy path, but a stronger spirit is needed to walk the hard one. That's why Paul could say his joy was unapologetically obvious, despite imperfect circumstances. God had given him not just supplies, but soul strength. And that's often the greater miracle. Action steps. Living into bottomless riches. Shift your lens. Each time you catch yourself saying, I don't have enough, reframe it. God has more than enough. Write it, pray it, declare it. Lead from overflow. Ask yourself, how can I give time, energy, or vision this week in a way that reflects God's inexhaustible riches? Anchor in contentment. Instead of chasing what's next, sit with gratitude for what's already been supplied. Risk generosity. Choose one act of bold generosity in life or business that stretches you. Watch how God fills the gap. The bottom line. God's supply is not theoretical. It is not abstract. It is not delayed until heaven. It is here, now, and rooted in Christ Jesus. You don't have to live, lead, or work from a place of scarcity. You are invited to build your life on bottomless riches, to be filled to the brim, and to let that overflow into the lives of others. And here's the challenge. Will you keep hustling from empty, or will you finally live, love, and lead from the fullness of God's limitless supply?